Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Okay, so no one could hear me. Um, I just thought I would go live because I just wanted to have a Q&A. Like I've been sharing a bunch of my experiences, and I just thought like I'd give you an opportunity to share your experience in anything. Honestly, like just ask me like just a question, and I'll go ahead and share my own experiences on that particular topic and see what we can do. See if we can get anything done. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think just like experience, like personally, my experience, I haven't lived too long, but I've experienced in like, school and experience, stopping school and experience moving through transitional stage. So maybe like if you're younger, like 18 years old, like I could share my experience on like, okay, are you about to go to college or like, what are you planning on doing? And I could just share my experience moving through that process of like vocation or like what do you want to do with the rest of your life or whatever. And so um have you ever like experienced something that you wish you had learned the lesson beforehand so that it would be a lot easier for you to get through, you know? I mean, that's kind of what this whole, ministry is kind of about because it's just like, as I'm just sharing my experiences, um, I feel that's what God's called me to do. So, yeah. Hmm. So yeah, I mean, my whole ministry started. I mean, this is kind of, sort of like a ministry. I'm sharing my experiences, kind of like talking about what I've been through and stuff like that. I mean, my whole experience kind of like, I'll just give you a backstory of like, you know, what I do. Um, so what I do is, like I used to go to school, and I used to major in music education. And so used to be, I still am, interested in doing music and stuff like that. And like I was doing music education for a long time, and sometime like around like last school semester, um, which would be like 1.5 months ago or whatever. I just kind of just stopped since it wasn't working out well for me, and so I just decided from there like school that just it just the school wasn't working out well for me. Schooling wasn't working out well for me, and so like I was struggling with just like the academics of it and just studying and things like that, and just everything that I was doing just felt like it was just not working for me. So like I stopped going to school there. And then so when I had stopped going to school there, like I just I just basically found myself in a position where I was like, okay, what do I do now? Because I just felt like God was calling me to, you know, around the time when I had stopped going to school, I felt that God was calling me to something, that, different at the time. And so partially I feel like God, like, stopped me from, doing school. Partially, I mean, it's interesting, you know what I mean? But so, I stopped going to school, and after that, I was like, okay, what should I do? Since like I had never stopped going to school, and I also like quit my one of my jobs. I had two jobs at the time, and I quit one of them because I just felt like, okay, I should do something, something, that I'm more interested in or something like that, like, And so I just felt like I was in a position of just like confusion and like What should I do now? The first thing I did was reach out to others. I mean, that's especially important. And so, I mean, if I'm being honest, like the position I was in, yeah, not a good position. I mean, laying on my bed, just like, oh, like just silent, just like no words coming out of my mouth. And, um, so like when I was just going through like that kind of like time, like I was just silent, laying on my bed, kind of just like, all right, well, now what? Like, just feeling like, okay, what should I do next? So like I just like, and then I live with my parents at this moment, and like my parents would try to talk to me and stuff, like, and I appreciated that. But for the most part, I didn't talk too much. For the most part, like I didn't talk to them a lot. Even if they would talk to me, like I just wouldn't respond back, and so I was just like in that position, and so as I was just kind of just like, all right, what should I do? Like I felt like God was preparing me for something, and it's interesting, like ministry is such an interesting thing. Now I mean, like, okay, I'm not too experienced with ministry, but like this is sort of like a ministry, since like I'm doing sort of consistently now these days. And so I as I share my experience, like it just reminds me of like what I had to go through to get to this ministry point was like excruciating. And so like it was just excruciating. Like I had to go through a lot just to get to the stage of like, all right, now I can share my experiences on it, because I had gotten through stuff, like gotten through it. I mean, a little bit of details, like I found myself in a position where like I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but um like depressed, and like I felt like almost suicidal. Like almost to the point of like suicidal. Like like I just wanted to, but I mean, like it was like that. I was just kind of like in that position, you know what I mean? Because it's just like just going through so much. So like, and I'm just sharing that experience because it's just like I was just going through so much. And so as I was going through that, how I got through it, I mean, as I said before, like I talked to you guys about like you gotta reach out to someone, because if you're going through something, like you just gotta reach out. It's just not gonna work, you know. But and then so I reached out to a bunch of people, especially one of my friends. I just reached out, and got advice, and eventually got to the point where I was feeling okay. I can get back, get a job. I got my license and started doing the ministry. And so it's interesting how God prepares you sometimes. Because ministry, it's just interesting. Ministry is, as I'm starting to kind of do ministry and kind of just, talk about it, it's not easy. Like what I had to go through to get to this point is interesting to look back, because, like, yeah, God was definitely preparing me, because it's like what I had to go through was not easy. So, yeah. Um, so, I mean, I had to just go through a lot at that time. I had to just go through a lot at that time. And then, after I'd gone through that, I just started sharing my experiences. And that is so interesting because I just shared it. I just shared my experience with a bunch of people. And hopefully it helps some people, like I just started sharing, sharing, sharing. eventually got to the point where it's like, all right, like something I should share with you. I kind of want to be a pastor, and I kind of just want to be a pastor, like, and like I feel like teaching is something that I want to do, like teaching and pastoring and stuff like that. And so, as I share with you my experience, consider sharing your experience because testimony is a really, you know, essential thing when you're going through stuff. I mean, testimony, like, especially when you've gotten through something very interesting, testimony, like the word of the testimony, like the word of your testimony. God can use stuff like, like giving your testimony of God's goodness. You know what I mean? And so, um, I just felt like, sharing that experience, and hopefully you feel like to share your experience. So yeah. Also, if you're new to this channel, I mean, check out my other videos. I mean, maybe if you don't know what like this, if you don't know what this is all about, just watch my other videos and just see what it's about, because honestly, um, I'm just sharing my experience, being, like open to you guys about like what I've gone through, what I've been through and stuff like that. And just sharing that stuff. So yeah, just sharing experience and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, so just I decided to make a little live stream before I go to work. So honestly, counseling helps me. Like, I'm not the only one sharing my experience. Like, I get others' experience from like my, like teachers who teach me, and then through that, like I share my experience with, you got you or like whoever and stuff like that. So it's just like, um, as you learn more and more things in your life, like just God's gonna use it, and He's gonna use it to glorify Himself, and so just stuff like that. And honestly, that's the whole reason why I want to do this, just to glorify Him. Also, please reach out to me. Like I've experienced, extreme situations, in my opinion. Uh, extreme situations. I'm not gonna say I've experienced your situations, but I've experienced, extreme situations at some times in my life. And um, so it's just like reach out to me if you so desire. Reach out, get in touch with me, you know. Uh, yeah. Anything else? Let's see. I don't have anything else really. That's pretty much it. Like I was hoping I'd get a couple questions on here, but I mean honestly, I mean it starts somewhere, like hopefully like maybe next time someone shows up pops up, asks me a little question, um, unless it's a video or whatever. But so um my experience so far starting my like it's like God's ministry. So it's like my experience kind of just like just doing what God asked me to in my calling. It's sort of interesting. Um, like I haven't gotten completely through it yet. So this isn't necessarily all for me or all for you. Like, what if like you could share an experience with me? Like this could also be like a mutual thing. Like I don't have to just share my own experiences, but you can help me too. So like, um, because I'm new to this. I'm like new to ministry or like like calling and or just ministry in general. Sort of semi new, but yeah, just share maybe as you consider sharing your experience with me. Like, think it could also help me too. Like, not just me sharing my experience with you and stuff like that. So, see time. I guess I'll preach on something, maybe teach on something. Teaching in general. I'm just gonna like just talk about my experience in teaching. Like I feel like God's called me to be, to teach, and that's an interesting thing. Like, okay, teach. Okay, how do you teach? You know what I mean? And it's interesting. Teaching is very interesting. I mean, I'm a teacher, that's one of my, jobs that I do. I teach music. And so one of my jobs, I have two jobs, but I teach music part-time. And so it's an interesting thing, like as I apply some teaching to, ministry, like it does kind of it translates a little bit. Like I teach people how to, be musical and whatever they're performing or something. And so it's just like teaching is basically like just like sharing my experience because um I think there's well, experience is like you've experienced something and then you're sharing your experience, if that makes sense. You experience something and then you're sharing your experience. So your experience is like, the lesson you've learned. And as I have taught, like I've learned that like first you need to learn the lessons before you teach someone else. Like it's interesting. You learn the lessons first and then you teach someone else. I mean that's teaching basically. Like you learn lessons, then you teach someone else. And so um of course it's always rooted in scripture. Like everything you teach is rooted in scripture and you base it on scripture and and stuff like that. So teaching for me is just sharing my own experience and what I've learned and um um yeah, basing it on scripture and stuff like that. I feel like that's teaching for me. That so um also I really enjoy teaching. Like I really enjoy sharing my own experiences because it's just what God calls me to do. Like I'm a teacher, like that's just what God's called me to do. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that. So, teaching also, like, I feel like teaching for me is like, as you teach, you learn too. It's not just me learn. It's not just you learning. I learn too. Like, um, and what I've learned is just like what I've experienced. Like, I'll just share my personal experience. Like as a teacher, sometimes God can use me to share an experience, but also He uses it to teach me at the same time. So it's interesting. Like you're not the only one getting taught. It's me too. You know what I mean? So it's just like we're both being taught at the same. You know, and so as I'm sharing to you my experience, God is also using it for me too, teaching me lessons and stuff like that. And so for me, teaching is just like something that God can use in my life personally, and just to help me and help you guys and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, just seeing how God used teaching in my life. Like when I first, I went to school for teaching, and like I thought I was gonna be a music teacher at first, but then I was like, okay, that's not working out too well. And then I started doing ministry, and then it's like, oh wow, God's really doing something. And so, that's just that's just my personal experience on teaching and stuff like that. And oh, yeah. So, um, yeah. And I guess, like I've had struggles throughout my life. Yeah, like I've had struggles that God's brought me through, like throughout my life. Like, certain sins that, like I've struggled with for, still do currently struggle with, in my life. You know what I mean? And like, I just felt I'd share that with you because it's just like, just being real and open and honest about like, just the struggles that you may deal with and the struggles that I may also deal with. And like one of my struggles, like, um, one of my struggles, I'm just thinking about how I want to describe this. I mean, it's just like using the internet to search up stuff that you shouldn't be searching. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, that's just something that I just felt like I should share with you guys. And so just being real, open and honest, and it's it's I feel like it's important for me to do stuff like that because as I'm sharing with you my experience, like as I'm sharing with you my experience, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Like this is, I want you to get the personal me, like the personal me, and that's the real me, like that is the real me. Um, so yeah, So I mean, anyone else's struggles, stuff like that. I mean, it's. I mean, it's like this. I mean, like since like I'm being open and honest, like you can be open and honest back to me. You know what I mean? And it's just like sort of like that kind of thing. They just open and honest back to me, and so uh, stuff like that. I should stop soon. So yeah, I mean, hopefully this has helped you and this has blessed you. I mean, hopefully maybe you're feeling more willing to just share my experience. One of these days I'll do another live stream and maybe like someone can comment, someone can share their experience, someone can ask a question. Um, and so yeah, I just thought like um, yeah, just share my experience today. So God bless.